Welcome to Making It with Terry Wollman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Wollman.
Welcome to Making It, presented to you by Fireside. Today's show is dedicated to Pride Week, and I'm so happy to have as my guest today a longtime associate and friend, Christina Paakkari. I appreciate you joining us every week, and I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and with abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance. And don't forget to have fun along the way.
One great way to live. I love that.
Thank you. I think that's sort of when I started hosting a podcast a few years ago, I thought, well, I need to kind of figure out my point of view and mission statement. And that's kind of how I've lived my life. And it's from what I know of you, that's a lot how you've lived your life too, Christina.
Right. I know it took me a little while to get to Christina on the final round there, but I've been Christina my whole life. I've known since I was 4 or 5, I was trans, getting into I have a sister, half sister that's about 12 years older than me, and my mom's, and they all knew and kind of guided me along the way for a long time, but a lot of resistance here and there, not from them, but, in the world. But I finally made the leap about 4 years ago, and it's been, for the most part, great. You know what's coming from some people and not what's coming from other people, and vice versa.
One of the questions, and there's so many, and today we're going to be talking about your life as a trans woman and your journey, but also your amazing music career that I've been fortunate to be a part of along the way. We've done some sessions every few years, and it's always a joy working with you.
But I was blessed to get it. Go ahead. No,
I was curious if not being called Charlie anymore if that took any kind of adjustment, but you just answered that question.
Yeah, no, it did though, in a way, as long as I was Christina for the longest time, in the shadows, so to speak, it does take adjustment, and some people still mess it up, especially when you first transition. It's kind of funny, and everybody's apologetic. I'm like, no worries, don't worry about it. I'm not offended by it. I live that life. It's okay.
Right. I think part of your at ease with it, with amongst friends who are struggling with it or just trying to make sure that we get it right as far as pronouns or just getting used to the idea that you've got a different name that we knew you by, is that, again, your journey's been, you're older. I mean, you're not like a young 20-year-old going through this. So I
wish that was, but it's who doesn't? But no, it takes time. I grew up in a different generation in a lot of respects and ways, and it's opened up a lot now. It's still difficult. It's still making that journey is a tough decision in your life. I was established, and I put it all on the line, but thankfully it's more or less worked out. So that's been good. Yeah, I get asked. I think I told you in one thing. A lot of parents come to me in the last few years, about 3 or 4 per year, and they want to talk about their kid who would like to transition. And I kind of help put them in touch with the right people, that I know that would be who I feel is the right connection, and let them know about, the LA Gender Center is a very good place to start. They handle people of all ages. Yeah, there's a program put together. It's called WePath, WPATH, and it's the World Professional Association of Transgendered Health. And they've kind of set standards for, how to go about this. And it's really good to have somebody, in your side as far as any sort of, therapy type of thing for that, just so you can sound out and discuss the issues and the changes along the way. But they've set certain guidelines, which I think I grew up with those guidelines. And a lot of people jump way ahead. A little dangerous, they want you to kind of like live in your chosen gender for a couple of years before you really do anything, as far as surgeries or anything like that. And, I think it's a wise move because there's some things you can't undo. You can undo everything probably except, gender confirmation surgery. And
Mm-hmm.
but it's all good. I'm honored actually that so many parents, like 3 or 4 a year, but I'm touched that people are like, I have to talk to you about this, and they're all good. They all want to support their child. It's not that at
Mm-hmm.
all. It's just how do I help my kid? What's the way for me to do the right thing? So,
How did it go with your family
you know,
as far as
um,
support?
my ex had some problems with it. My kid, I have a 19-year-old daughter. She's never had an issue with it, and same with her friends. Not an issue at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, my family, my mother-in-law, who's still kind of my mom in a way, she's fine with it. She's 95, and there's some other family members that are a little iffy about it, and some have come around. Some have said, hey, and are trying to rebond and do this and that. So sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it's not going to happen with people. And, I don't push it one way or the other. I don't put it in their face and go, hey, or anything like that. You have to respond. But
Right.
the world's changing. And I think that despite the political climate and everything else and the great division in this country,
Yeah.
it's opened up, so
Well, as speaking of the world changing, last week President Joe Biden said pride is back in the White House, and he's urging the passage of the Equality Act. He says it's the antidote to the disturbing proliferation of anti-LGBTQ bills we're seeing in state legislators. And he also hailed young transgenders as some of the bravest people in the world. That's pretty powerful.
it is powerful. And Sarah McBride, she's been with him for a while as a supporter, and now she's a state senator in
Right.
Vermont, I think. And I had lunch with her a few years ago, actually. A totally sweet person and just great. But she's been on his team, and he's wanted her on his team for a long time as a supporter.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the reasons that even back 5 years ago, he was I'm standing for this. This is right. This is this happens to people. This is a reality, and the world needs to understand that. And the whole LGBT community kind of is opened up a lot more since he's been in office. When
Mhm.
the previous administration was like, you can't have rainbow flags, you can state assembly, you can't do it. So it's a welcome change.
Even seeing the White House with the Obamas when they lit it up in rainbow colors,
Yeah,
I was, as a heterosexual man, I was so deeply moved and touched and happy for all of us. I just thought it was so beautiful.
no, the world is changing, and they're getting it.
Yeah.
And like I say, and I have it. Love is love, no matter what it is, or it shouldn't be. It can't be put. It can't be defined so strictly. It is what it is, and when people have feelings about each other, that's what makes it happen. So
Absolutely.
yeah, there shouldn't be laws regulating it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Uh, what about the music community? My perception, amen. Yeah, we're getting some live applause from our virtual audience. Uh, it seems like on the most part, your main job has been working at Capitol Studios, and there's a strong community there.
Thank you.
Yeah, uh, of of artists like yourself who help with all the technical things, engineering and mastering and editing and all the skills that you have, as well as yourself being a musician. But it seems like most of the artists have been pretty supportive and acceptive, and we loved you and respected you before, and we love you and respect you now. I would imagine that doesn't hold for everybody. How have you been
It's
maneuvering through that?
it's interesting. For the most part, I have to honestly say that the same prejudice I get outside of the business, I get inside the business. There's certain
Hmm.
conservative religious people who just can't accept it. Whatever texts they believe in just will not allow it, and that's caused some issues for me. There's no doubt about that. There's definitely discrimination with it, but everyone within the business, for the most part, in the community has been great. I you kind of you kind of know what's coming, from certain people, And that's true, and other people surprise you. Some people I thought that were going to be totally turned off actually were like, God, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. And so there's always a few surprises in those links. But for the most part, the music business, well, the music business is not really hipper than any other business. I hate to say in some respects, but, it's just like inside the tower is the same as outside the tower in a lot of respects on that.
Right.
But I mean, we do have a good community, and there's no doubt that the world is changing with this. And certain artists, look how many artists are coming out. Every
Right.
day somebody, is announcing or saying, "Hey, this is." So there's some goodness coming out of that. I'm not denying that at all, but there's a little bit of hesitation, and some definite. I'm not going to go for this no matter what. But
right, and
yeah,
without mentioning names, I would expect that there might be one or two artists or musicians that would prefer not to work with you because they're just uncomfortable.
I
Does that
haven't
come
had it
up
with
a little bit?
artists, and I
Okay,
haven't had it with the immediate staff that I work with at all.
good.
Everybody's been great about that. That wasn't. I think they've known me for so long. It
Right.
just didn't really matter in a way. It didn't change my work skills. It didn't
No.
change my vision on anything. It's just but yeah, I mean, like for the most part, it's been great. There, you're going to have a few, bumps in the road,
Yeah.
and you just have to be ready to drive right over them and keep on moving and keep going forward.
My observation is the thing that I see is the most different since you've transitioned is that you're happier. Your eyes are more clear. You just shine more brightly now. I mean, you
Oh,
just
well, that's
seem
that's
lighter.
makeup. No.
Oh.
Thank you, Lisa.
And
Yeah, no, I just
that's funny.
yeah, no, it's definitely a relief in a lot of ways, as much stress
Yeah.
as it can cause getting there. But I'm glad to hear that. I I tried to transition a little over 20 years ago, and
Hmm.
my ex and I had been desperately trying to have a kid. Nothing worked, and so I went through the program. I started seeing people, started seeing doctors, endocrinologists, the whole deal. And about a year on the juice, as I say, my ex got pregnant.
Hmm.
And we had wanted so long, and I love being a dad. My daughter still calls me dad. I don't care, it's no big deal. And I detuned for a little bit. It was still going on in the background, but and still this and that. But I detuned and went through all those formative years with her, which were great and brilliant. And she knew the whole time. She would, oh yeah, Dad, he likes to dress up and I paint his nails, and it's just it was all it was no big deal, But there comes a point, at least for me, I think for a lot of people who are trans, that you can't live both lifestyles. It got harder and harder to put it away, and that certainly became the challenge for me. There was just a point, where it's like I can't live two lives anymore. I can't live on the in between. It's this other thing's too strong. So I started in 2015 again. Seeing the right people, getting pills, shots, the whole deal, and it takes time to change. As you're older, it takes time, a little more time, to
Hmm.
get those changes going. But it's been good. I feel really fortunate in what's happened to me, and been in with the right people, and you should see the right people. There's a real tendency, even today, to kind of buy everything off the internet and this and that, and it can be dangerous.
Hmm.
A lot of the LGBT community now has support, in their centers and everything, so you can get advice, counseling, hormones. It's not like it was a million years ago, where I went through incredible testing to begin with, and
Hmm.
but it all was good. And when that 20-year, yep, you're good. Let's send you to this person. Okay, time to go see this person. And but yeah, the support's out there now. Yeah, the community's big. So
Yeah. And you had, I know you believe in mentoring, both in your music career. You've had a lot of wonderful mentors, and you've been a mentors, which is a part of what we all do. But, and I imagine that you had some guides in addition to doctors. Did you find some community that kind of gave you information that helped you
oh yeah,
maneuver
especially
through
early
this?
on.
Yeah.
I'd go out and club, not to go crazy or do anything, but just to talk to people and get information before the internet really filled everything out, the way it has. It was word of mouth. And
Right.
luckily, I've been able to mentor people through part of it too. It's like, oh no, I think if you want to do that, you should talk to this person, or you should go see this person if that's what you want to do. Because I just got in this discussion on Facebook with somebody, but the word transgender is so broad that it's a blessing and a curse. It is a giant umbrella, but everybody's story is unique, and there's so many different factions about how far you're going to go and what this really is for you that it it can be a challenge. But I know I've helped a few people along this road and along the way, and I'm always willing to take a question and say, hey, here's what I think. I don't think I've ever said I don't want to discuss that. So
Well,
it's important. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I agree. I think it's incredibly important. Part of my intention today with us having this conversation is hopefully to help some people, to clear some mystery up for things that people might want to know or be uncomfortable with, or just not understand. And just the very fact, like, I had never thought of transgender as being a broad description of people. So could you elaborate on that? I mean, I get it.
Well, I mean, I think there's people certainly that would be the older term might be transvestite, or people who have a fetish with it. It goes all the way from that, or closet dressing, or things like that, all the way to people who go through every surgery possible. Caitlyn Jenner, I'm not, yeah. No, I think I think she did a very brave thing and opened up a lot of eyes. I don't believe in her politics. I don't
Yeah.
support a lot of or anything really that's going on with her. But I think she opened a lot of eyes to what's going on in this world, but she's someone who, again, we're probably talking someone who spent $250,000 on rebuilding herself, and possibly more. I don't know, and
Right.
but so it goes from one kind of little end of people who are just kind of having fun with it for whatever reason to a pretty extreme case like hers. And the other thing I should say in that, and I can believe this is true in her case, is many people think when you transition that your sexual preference changes along with your gender preference, and that's not true at all. I've always tried to make a distinction about that the two are not related. Gender preference and sexual preference are two different elements, and one does not necessarily affect the other.
Right.
I think it can, but for me, it didn't. I've always been attracted to women and always will be. That's not, that's just me. But I have friends who've gone through many surgeries and have kind of shifted, or ride both sides of the coin. Whatever. It's
right. Well, I mean, speaking of, and if you're in a really wonderful relationship with a woman, with Karen,
yeah,
who very similar to my relationship with my wife Melanie. We were friends for a long time, and that grew into a romantic relationship, and we do have that in common. And has it been easier to have her in the picture with
absolutely.
you?
Absolutely. I mean, I just love sharing my life with somebody.
Yeah,
and we've known each other for 30 years, over 30 years now. And we almost had an affair once upon a time way back when, but we knew it was wrong. And, we actually didn't do it. We were both very careful with all of that. I can't say it wasn't tempting, but I was good, and so was she. But when I transitioned, we reconnected. And we've been together ever since. Now it's coming to 3.5 years, I think now. So it's been great, but she's an engineer. She understands me. We're both cyclists. We both like to do a lot of things. I have had a good fortune to travel a lot. So we're starting to do that together now too, which is great. The pandemic kind of hurt that a little bit, for everybody. But we just enjoy a lot of things together. We have a great community and friends around us. So, and they don't, we're the same two people we always were. It didn't change anything.
Must have been some sort of an adjustment period though for the two of you. I mean, it doesn't change. Like you said, love is love. your heart is your heart, your feelings are your feelings. Or am I overthinking it? It just was you were still so much the same people that.
Well, we just kind of picked up where we left off,
Right.
thankfully. And I think one thing you realize too after you transition, there's still a lot of elements of your past in you still, and
Yeah.
that come through, and that's good. I don't think that's a bad thing, and I don't think people should try to hide it. So a lot of times they do, and but you are you are what you are,
Right.
and I'm just glad this finally came out of me, and I was able to do it, and I kind of wander through the world unnoticed, which is great. It's I, I I'm untouched, excuse me, by a lot of what might be, I have friends who are called out by creepy guys or this and that, or there's dangers about being trans, but I kind of just glide through unnoticed. I feel very lucky in that respect, So
that's such a beautiful thing that you are actually living your life, being your true self, and getting to just kind of, like you said, glide through the world with less effort.
Yeah, and that's one thing. When this whole process starts with you, you're so afraid, and afraid to go out, and then you kind of get the courage to go out a little bit. Then there's all these little milestones you have to march through in a way to get there. But I found out for me, and I think for a lot of people, once you kind of make the leap and there's no going back, it's all easy. It's all dust under the table or whatever, swept under the rug. I don't know. We need more rugs around here. I can say, but yeah, no, I just once that confidence thing kicks in and you do it, it just changes your whole attitude with the world and how you present yourself. Even if you never say a word, your whole vibe changes,
Right.
and how you walk down the street or down the road or the path or whatever. Hike.
The hike, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, since you're saying you're still the same person, let's talk about the person that you are and have always been. I want to tell people a little bit about you musically, so our listeners know. Christina Paakkari, formerly known as Charlie Paakkari, is an audio engineer for Capitol Records and the recipient of 3 Grammy Awards, 2 Emmys, and several other prestigious music award nominations. Yes, applaud.
Yeah. Whoa, thank you. Love that button. Let's just leave that on. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. You've been recording iconic artists at Capitol Studios since the early 80s. Your clients include James Taylor, Paul Simon, Dwight Yoakam, Harry Connick Jr. You've been involved in recordings at Capitol ranging from Crosby, Stills, and Nash to Ozzy Osbourne. And you've also worked with the Carpenters, Tony Bennett, Bette Midler, Elton John, Les Paul, Natalie Cole, Pat Benatar, Barry Manilow, Sting, Doc Severinsen, Dave Grusin, Wendy Carlos, and Frank Sinatra. And so, yeah, it's your career has been really quite impressive. And I had said to you earlier, Christina, part of what's so impressive to me about your credits and career and everything is it's not just all engineering. I mean, it's editing, it's mixing, it's playing piano, composing, arranging,
producing. I've had, and designing and technical support and things as well. The people who I grabbed onto and they grabbed onto me and vice versa, as far as other people in the industry. I was lucky. Certainly, we just lost Al Schmidt, but who was gifted and gave a great Armin Steiner, Sean Murphy, but also people like Phil Ramone, saw this in me. And as he would say, I threw you a bone because you did this. But I invented the phone vocal technology. I didn't invent the box, but I invented the way to make it work, especially back in the analog days. Nowadays in Pro Tools, it's much easier to do a lot of these things. But way back in those ancient days of tape, it wasn't.
Right.
And so I figured out how to be able to record them we had these Class A telephone lines we'd link up. I'll just go into a second of the technical because I am a nerd. So
me too.
I won't do that. But yeah, there's delays every time if I called New York, the phone call might go from Florida here to Florida to Philadelphia to New York, whatever. There's always different times. So what I did was I was able to time the lines and mix them back out of phase. And when it canceled, I had a number in milliseconds that I can convert to seconds and frames. And I would take my send machine, which I didn't listen to, and put it that much ahead and then have people sing to it. So when I got the vocal back on these lines, it was in perfect sync. And it was a big change. It was a big thing for Capitol to do a lot of that for a long time, and made a lot of money doing it. They made a
Yeah.
fortune, and we recorded everybody doing that, from Aretha to Carly Simon to Charles Aznavour, just a great little piece of technology there that now is just like everything,
Right. I didn't know that piece of information about you, but what I do know that I learned from preparing for our conversation is that you studied biochemistry in
I
college.
was, yeah, I went to Berkeley for a year and a half, and then what's now Cal State East Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing in bands at nights, and I grew up in from 10 on, I was raised in an Italian family that had a small family wholesale produce business.
Mm-hmm.
And it was brutal. I knew I didn't want to do that. My parents really wanted me to take over the business, but I came to LA and kind of forged my way into this world. And you just got lucky. I worked for free in a studio at night while actually working at Licorice Pizza record chain, putting
Mm-hmm.
orders together, if you remember that.
I do.
But yeah, it was all good. So yeah, I played in bands. I was always a do it around the house, everything, because nobody else could. Oh, I can take care. I can fix that. I can. So I've kind of molded my career in that way of being sort of the buds person, which
Mm-hmm.
you had to be in studios early on. That was part of the. You went in, you aligned the machine, you had to figure out what was wrong with the console, you had to figure this out and that out. A lot of that's changed now, but you learn a lot. I learn a lot, from the mentors that I've had, and I
Mm-hmm.
think, like any artist, you grab a little piece of this person, or a lick from that person, or a brushstroke from this person, or, and that's kind of how you build yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was willing to totally figure that out and accept it, and it takes time, and I've been really fortunate working, being a staff at Capitol for so long,
Right.
and dealt with so many great people. And but yeah, I think we talked about this a little earlier, not in this conversation, but one of the great kind of things for me has been that as my musical taste changed, and I moved and grew up a little bit. I was into rap and programming and MIDI and doing this, and then pop rock, and then I got a chance to do a big jazz record for Super Sax early on, and it kicked my butt in a way as far as getting my reading up to speed at that type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. But I kind of drifted into another little edge, a little realm there with that, and then that kind of led me to doing string overdubs, and that kind of led me into doing scoring, picture and TV shows and this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding all these different little facets of recording, and or styles, I guess maybe I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older, my career moved into those really, really beautifully, and so that's been a real blessing in disguise, I have to say. That I'm interested. I like doing it. I like doing this. Now I'm basically doing since until the studio completely reopens. I'm doing production and assembly mastering and QC, and I QC vinyl and go through all types of stuff like that, which is good. And it's a little less stressful hour wise. I have
Oh,
deadlines, of course, and
right.
everything, but I'm not doing 12, 14, 16, 18, 20-hour days,
Mm-hmm.
per se on a daily basis. So, and plus I can work from home.
Mm-hmm.
So while everybody else kind of had to take it in the, we can't work,
Right.
I have this skill to be able to do this. And it's been good. It's one more facet that has to be done in the business. And
Well,
like,
it's a huge part. You had told me that this is a huge part of what Capitol does behind the scenes, is this post production work that's highly technical, still musical though, of course.
oh yeah. And we actually have to make so many different versions of the same thing now. There has
Mm-hmm.
to be a version for Apple. There has to be a version for Spotify. There has to be a version for this and that and for Amazon. And, then we've got to deal with, the technology that all those systems require,
Mm-hmm.
all those clients require and stuff like that. So, and then assembly, mastering, QC, putting together, doing vinyl assemblies for things. there's still vinyl's still going. It's taken a little hit in the shorts with the Apollo lacquers caught fire, which was in Central California. Yay!
Yay for vinyl.
And yeah, but so getting the actual lacquer that the lathes use to cut and make the masters from, and the mothers and the stampers has been a little bit of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But lacquer is actually it's lacquer paint. It's a very flammable substance. So when that factory blew up, and it was sort of the only factory left in the United States, it became an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's people are still going on lathes. It's great to know. It's a technology. I actually was never a lathe engineer.
I'm surprised because it seems like you've said yes to so many other things.
I've sat in and done it, but it's not my groove. No pun intended there, so to speak. But yeah, no, it's interesting. You have to. Well, nowadays there's computers that correct for it, and you have to make sure you don't cut back into what you just did, because it's sort of like a inside out cut the way it works. And you want to go in and deep and be as loud as possible. That's what makes things loud. But you don't want to make sure you go in so deep that you blow off the wall that you just cut, so to speak, or cut through it. And so it's an interesting, the original Neumann lathes had a 4 times computer that every revolution it's 4. Now they're systems that do 32 times per revolution. So you can really pack a lot of info in there and be loud and proud. But it's nothing I did. I had a little more excitement in the studio, so to speak.
Do you have a preference, or do you like the balance of it all? Like, in other words, would you rather be recording a live string date or doing digital editing at home by yourself?
Well, I love interacting with people. I mean, the musicians, producers, other engineers, that's my community. So that interaction, that's been hard on everybody. I think the pandemic has actually, and plus Pro Tools has actually changed it. All our digital workstations have changed the way people, it's really hard to get people in a room to play together now. And it's a bit of a shame, really. There's a great interaction and magic that happens with people together. I don't need to tell you because you're a great player, that. But yeah, people, and you come up to a game. I mean, I can remember lots of times, I'm like, I'm not ready for this. But somehow when it happens, you step up to the plate a notch, and they bring you up, and it just kind of happens. And so there's this energy, and that's the beauty of being in the studio. It's nice to be able to, get up, roll out of bed, play on the computer, and do this and that while I'm. But no, it's that's what I miss the most. I have the most fun with people and friends, and have made friends with people all through the orchestra and through the studio. Just every great player, I've linked onto, and you learn so much watching people play. Even if it's an instrument I don't play, you learn it, you hear it, it's always growing.
Is it true that you actually take instruments and do some playing and recording just to discover better ways to capture the sound sonically?
Well, certainly on stringed instruments, that's true for me. And, you can't borrow a great piano and do this or that. But no, I think, through observation, being an assistant on something and seeing, oh, wait, they did that way. And I kind of like the way that works, but I like the way I do this. And so, plus every day, the different things. I've recorded everything from gamelons to, it's just, I'm trying to think what's another bizarre thing to bouzouki to just. There's so many things out there to listen to and record and figure out what's the best way to capture it. And that's sort of the art of recording. What represents this person the best, and how do I help this person out the best? And
right.
That's one thing I kind of look at. Even if I'm engineering but you're kind of producing, it's like, how do I make this artist comfortable? How do I get out of them what they want without them knowing it? I mean, I built a living room in a studio for J.J. Cale. When I was doing one of the records, like Guitar Man or Closer to You, or it was Travelogue, which is actually one of my favorite records with him. But because I could tell he needed to have a couch and a lamp and coffee table, and he could just sit down on that and play it, and it emulated what he needed to do that. And I look at that with all artists. What's the best way? Analyze this and see, how do I relax them if it's a joke, over the talk back, or what breaks the ice, what separates, how do I break the separation to just make it feel comfortable so the glass isn't there anymore. And it's an important thing a lot of people don't realize. It's if you when I have sat on the other side of the glass, that's when I realized that. It's like, oh my gosh, this is making me nervous being out here. It's not my comfort zone, huh? And so I try to pay good attention to that with people, especially with newer artists that need a little bit more cuddling, so to speak.
And how do you maneuver through, since you have such a broad skill set, your job is different for different live sessions. Sometimes you are the primary engineer, sometimes you're the assistant engineer, sometimes you are the assistant, other times you are producing. Do you ever find it hard when you are the assistant and they're on technical, in a technical position, not having a point of view and an opinion? Or do you?
Hard to keep my mouth shut on that. But no, you do it's good. One thing about Capitol is, the assistants there are all way overqualified, and other people have said that about me, in print, and interviews and such. That I try to make it so there's no worries for anybody, and you can just get in there. You just balance if that's your gig, and I'm the assistant, and I will cover everything else. CYA all the way.
Right.
And you don't get that at a lot of other studios with assistants because they just don't have the experience. It's just that they're getting it, but it's harder now. I mean, look, when I moved to Los Angeles in '79, there were maybe 300 studios, professional studios of some sort. What is there now? 80?
Right.
Everybody's recording at home. It's all, it's just a different thing.
How long did that transition take from working for free at a 2-room studio to having your first opportunity at Capitol or any of the other big studios?
Oh, well, actually, I worked at Music Lab for free until somebody left and they hired me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I've got to remember, this is pretty funny. I think I left a $3 an hour job for a $2 an hour job.
Yeah.
And I was just starting, but when I engineered there, I would make $10 an hour. So this is a big deal. And then I did a lot of technical work there. I realized what was needed. Yeah, this, yay. But so that transitioned, and then I stupidly quit that job over them firing a girl that I was upset about. And even though we never were anything, and that was in 1980 when there was a little bit of a crash in the business.
Mm-hmm.
But I walked into, this is true story. I walked into a studio called Wilder Brothers on the West Side, and they had a big cassette duplicating thing as well as a couple studios. They were right across from CBS in Century City on the Boulevard. And I went in, and right when this was happening, Glenn Frey was producing Carla Bonoff, and Hawk Walensky was playing, and they were having issues. Every time he hit the switch on the Leslie to get it to spin, it would throw a pop over the whole 24 track. And they were going crazy trying to figure out and ready to walk out. And it was a big deal. And I just happened to walk in with a resume. And they looked at me and they said, what do you think about this? Can you fix this? And I'm like, well, let me think about it. So I looked at the whole situation and everything. And I thought, well, it's getting into the AC line. So what if we move that? So I got a long extension cord. I literally moved it like 50, 60 feet and plugged it into another outlet on the other side of the building, and it stopped. And the next day they called me back for an interview and hired me. And it was the first time they hired a non-family member. The Wilder brothers were 3 brothers who played sax, who were in Kenton's band and everything. And, so I kind of did that. And then I got a chance to go to a studio called Spindletop, which was owned by MCI West Coast. And then that led me to Wally Heider's, which was an amazing opportunity. And from Wally Heider's, I went to Capitol. And I've worked at every studio in town, doing this or that, as far as an independent. But, working at Wally Heider's, I was 22 or 23 years old, and I'm in a place with scoring, remote trucks, media, 11 studios. It was a kid in a candy shop opportunity for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I just transferred all that into Capitol. And so,
And how, you're such a fixture at Capitol. Every memory I have of working at Capitol Studios since the early 80s, I've seen you. If we weren't working together, you were walking through and we say hi. But the question is, how did you have opportunities to play piano on some of the sessions? Was that just
well,
relationship based or
not that
writing
I'm
arrangements?
somebody didn't show up, but mostly it would be
Okay.
guitar for me. I'm not a great, I can
Okay.
maybe hit a couple of things on that, but it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, opportunities, either somebody doesn't show up or something's not working right or those opportunities happen.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I was saying earlier about the Super Sax record, Hugh Davies, who was one of my mentors there, had an aneurysm actually, and he couldn't do the record. And so they threw me in on this, and I'd seen them work with him, and you know, they were drinking talls at 10 and screaming at each other by 2, and I was a little, but
Mm-hmm.
they loved me, and it worked out great. But those type of things, they just happen when they happen, or the great a lot of the mentors I've had throw me a lot of rope. Let me, you go ahead and do that. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you got in trouble, they might reel you back in.
Right.
But that opportunity happened a lot for me. They were like, yeah, why don't you go? Or if they were busy, what, use her. Do this, use him, do
Mm-hmm.
this. So those things happen. Somebody'd be like, no, I don't want to do this. Why don't you stay tonight and finish that off for me?
Mm-hmm.
And bill so and so. So it those things happen. That's sort of how you build a little bit of that.
I saw that you have an acting credit on IMDb playing Sandy Wexler. But as being
Yeah.
a sound engineer, was that one of those things also? You just happened to be in the right place and somebody asked you to
Yeah,
do it?
well, I'd worked with Adam Sandler a bit on and off, and Brooks Arthur, his producer,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd known them for years since Adam first started his comedy career, on Saturday Night Live. And on that, I was going to be technical supervisor. But, Brooks said, hey, what would you do in this situation? I said, well, I'd set this up like this and do that and have this running like that and make that happen. And so, Adam was watching all this. And when the actor came in to do my part, he's like, get him out of here. I don't want him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out great. It was pretty funny. I had a good time. I've been in a lot of little EPKs and
Right.
videos in this,
Mm-hmm.
but this was actually where I had lines and, did this and that. And, it was a lot of fun.
It was fun for you. Mm-hmm.
Sure, I'm a ham, I can take it. So even though all my friends at the studio were on the other side of the glass trying to make me laugh and screw up and everything, it was fun. Plus Babyface was with me and a couple other people, and I'd worked with Face a couple times, it was all good. I was honored to, yeah, but he's fun. I have to say, Adam, he knows everybody on the cast and crew.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I'd worked on a production where they actually had 2 crews, one that stayed up for the next day for the shot somewhere that came in at night. Well, my crew went home, or vice versa. And then the actors come in and it's all prepped and ready. And it was interesting to see that type of production, which I've never seen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've been on a lot of shoots over the years, doing this and that. I was also in Love Affair, which was Warren Beatty's take on An Affair to Remember on that movie with him and Annette Bening. And so at the last minute, too, they were like, no, these guys should do this job because they do it.
Mm-hmm. So you played
He
an
actually,
engineer in that as
yeah,
well.
I'm typecast. But it was pretty funny because all week I had been wearing a multi-channel walkie-talkie. So I went production, audio,
Mm-hmm.
lighting,
Right.
whatever. I'm hearing all these channels all the time, and they took it away from me when they decided for me to play this part. And so usually things, when they say cut, they roll. But he had said something to the crew, and when they said cut, then he looked at me and he said, hey, he's on the other side of the glass of the mic talking to me. He's like, the camera's there. Is that the same shirt you had on? Did you go to makeup and change anything? is is your hair different than? And I'm kind of like, huh? What? What's going on? And then all of a sudden he goes, okay, cut. Surprise reactions from engineer. Tail slate. Boom, done. So he kind of
That's
completely,
great.
he
Wow.
looped me into it,
Hmm.
and I had some good fun with that,
That does
Yeah.
sound like fun.
Yeah.
I want to open the floor up to questions from our virtual audience or comments, or Lisa, if you have anything
Yeah, I
that you would
was
like to
checking to
kick
see
in.
if anyone was raising their hand to want to come on stage to ask a question.
Okay.
This may be my favorite interview. No offense to
Oh.
any of the other ones, wait, including mine. This one may be my favorite because what I wrote in here on the little tagline is talking about basically just being human, in this world. And I so admire you for acknowledging who you are, who you always knew yourself to be, and then making that transition, no pun intended, to live your life fully, because it sets an example for all of us, transgender or not. Because there are many people who are not experiencing anything on that magnitude, but they are devastated by their inability to live fully into their own life.
Yeah,
Um,
it takes a leap of faith, no matter if it's not about transition or anything. But you have to really. I played it safe for so long. My
mhm.
parents were Depression era.
Ah,
And they wanted me to run this small family business, and it was brutal. God, it was a brutal life working on produce stocks and all that. But
Hmm.
I made the leap to get down here and get into something, even though they literally were going to disown me at first. I You have
mhm.
to taking those leaps of faith or finding that, and however you do it, if it's for fun, if it's for work, whatever it is, finding a passion and believing in your passion and yourself, I think is really an important step. And I've been pretty lucky with that, I have to say. I
No,
dumb luck maybe.
any kind of luck we can take sometimes. It's
Hmm.
admirable, and on a personal. And we have John here with a question, but on a personal level, my closest friend from high school died just around the time we were 50. And part of the angst that I had is he never lived into his true self. He was gay and never wanted people to know. His parents were really connected to the church. So all of his adulthood until they passed, he kind of hid it. And he ended up dying without fulfilling all that he could have been because he was uncomfortable sharing all of that about himself. And
Sure.
so, yeah.
That I
And
mean,
you,
that's changed a little
yeah,
nowadays, but you're
yeah.
absolutely right. That's a tragedy.
Yes. And so thank you for being that mentor to people as
Oh,
well. I think John is here. John, did you have a question?
Hi, Terry. Hi, Lisa and Christina.
Hi,
Very
John.
happy to make your acquaintance. Always
hi,
good
John.
to talk to you two, Terry and Lisa. Um, Christina, this has been a fascinating story to listen to, and actually, I have a couple of sound and music questions and a couple of personal questions, if you don't mind. I'll try to make this quick and not take up too
Sure.
much
Hit me.
time.
Hmm.
I'm ready.
So, on the professional side, on your career side, like by the way, this has been a fascinating conversation. And as it's been going on, I've been multitasking and looking up some of your credits, and this is kind of mind blowing. Like
Isn't it? Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, you've had your hands into a lot of amazing work, and I'm curious, what is like the one or two projects that you have been involved in throughout the course
Ooh,
of your career that meant the most to you?
Mm,
that's a good question. So many of them have.
Hmm.
I mean, honestly, I've been really fortunate and to get inside of a lot of artists and really kind of have a one-on-one with them. I was talking to Terry about this earlier about, some people have kind of, told me the ups and downs in their career that are shattering. You know, it, I'd have to say, gosh, favorite project. Well, J.J. Cale, I did the travelogue record when no one else could do it, and
Hmm.
it was just a blessing. He gave me more rope and was so good to me and so nice. And that record's so special to me in a way. When I was so young and not able to do anything, he gave me all the leeway in the world to help produce. And the first day of that session, he's like, "Yeah, Miss May and my girlfriend Christine, we're gonna come down and do some demos, cut some sides." And so he shows up with the original limb drum machine long before the production because John and Leon Russell had put the money behind that drum machine. So all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, see who walked in first. Was it Keltner, and then Drummond, and then Spooner Oldham came in, and then about 9 o'clock at night, Hoyt Axton showed up. And we went to whatever, but I just rolled with it. I kept my friend Sam Ramos, was helping me, and I was like, Sam, get more mics. Oh my gosh, we're gonna do this. We gotta take this. Gotta do this. James Burton. Oh no, it's like, so that I mean, working with Bonnie Raitt's been amazing to me. She's just so gifted, and I love her so much, and she's just so much fun as a person. Just not even to mention her musical talent is, I think, hardly recognized as what it should be. James Taylor. Yeah. How can you say, there's anything wrong there? Paul Simon, amazingly enough, I was brought in. And this is funny. JJ KO played on Rhythm of the Saints. And he told me these stories about, he invited John and Christine up to the house the night before they were going to record and put a tape on. And it was the songs minus the vocal. And he sat down on the couch and sang it live to them. Sure enough, years later, I worked on Surprise, and my job was to put on some drums from Robin DiMaggio and also Abe Laboriel on a lot of stuff, a couple other little things too. But every take in the control room, he had a 58, and he would sing along with this. And like, he's right next to Abe, and I'm there, and it was just amazing.
Incredible.
I was just like, wow, what a great way to inspire. And I'm a fan. This is the other thing. You have to separate the fan from the job sometimes. But I truly think he belongs in the Brill Building in the, Songwriters Hall of Fame as far as the Great American Songbook. And you think he wrote Bridge Over Troubled Water. He was probably 25 or something. Just so it's been. Just hanging out with him at lunch and talking to him and working with him, so I have those kind of moments, John. I hope that touches a little bit on that for you.
Oh, no, absolutely. It definitely does. The other question that I had for you is, as you were going through your transition, as you were finding out who you really are, what was the experience like that in your career as you progressed? Did you have to deal with a lot of pushback or?
I was talking about this earlier. I've had them from certain parts of the company and this and that. It changes. A lot of things changed for me as I transitioned anyway. Because I was moving into other departments and doing this and doing other things. So the clients have no problem. The internal staff that I work with had no problem. Management had some issues with it. But I went through it about 20 years ago and came really close to doing it when we ended up finding out we were going to have a child. So I pulled back, and I'm glad to do so. I've so enjoyed being a dad. I can't say, and my daughter knew about me since day one. It was no big deal. So.
I can't thank you enough for sharing that story, because Lisa said something right before I hopped up on stage that really hit home for me on a personal sense, and that is, not getting that chance to fully explore the true you before your time runs out. And this really resonates with me because I'm also an artist and musician, and currently I am kind of evolving myself in that sense. So it's heartwarming and empowering to hear, and thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh no, John, thanks for asking.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
we appreciate
good luck
you
with your
us.
thing, and just get out there and podcast the heck out of yourself.
Oh, I plan on it, obnoxiously so.
Yeah. Don't not do it. Get on the CD baby and all that stuff.
Well, we're actually already out there doing our thing, and I'm going to hop off stage here. But before I do, Christina, you and Terry were talking a little bit earlier about, like experimenting in the studio and everything. And I want to tell you guys that while I was listening to you, I was actually lining up a condenser mic and a contact mic into a plastic trombone that I'm going to be plowing through so many effects processes you can't even wrap your head around. So I just found it really amusing that came up right as I was throwing on a phaser onto a trombone, and it just made me chuckle.
That's great. Hey, John, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Really
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, John.
Take care, guys.
There's a quote. We were talking about President Biden and his embracing and supporting the community. And, one of the things that he said is it takes courage to be true to your authentic self and to face these kinds of discrimination exist. And I've just been thinking about that quote as listening to you speak, and all of us. I mean, we're not just talking about sexuality, gender. We're talking about living your true life.
Yes.
And life is short, and it is really not to be wasted. Whatever you do with your life.
Yeah, even if it doesn't become your life, if you explore it and it makes you happy, whether it's, sitting around on a couch with some friends or jamming along with something, whatever it is, if music is your passion, if photography is your passion, find it, explore it the best way you can. I think I said earlier, my parents were Depression era mentality. They had nothing, and literally nothing. And so did I growing up. I lost my dad when I was 4. And if anybody is from the Bay Area who's listening, I grew up below San Pablo Avenue on 10th Street at Ashby. It was a pretty rough existence down there. But, so we got lucky. We were able to kind of move along, and then, don't try to break those barriers. Here's a funny story. So I started playing banjo when I was about 11 or 12, and I got better than my teacher. And I took all my money from working all summer, all of it, and I bought a really nice, a $700 banjo.
Wow.
My parents freaked. They just wouldn't even talk to me for several days, But I ended up starting to play with friends around town at a couple places and this and that. And we'd play little political rallies just for fun and do bluegrass jams and stuff like that. But there was a leap of faith there for me that really was important. And hopefully we can all get that, and find it. So anyway.
I want to get to my closing questions because I know that you're working on a project right now and we're getting towards the end of our time together. I'll stay as long as you want to, but I know you're really busy. Oh, yeah. So the questions that I ask all of my guests at the end of each show, the first one is, since this show is called Making It, what does making it mean to you both personally and professionally?
Wow. Well, professionally, I think it's happened, and even I'm getting on the downhill side maybe a little bit just because of where I'm at in my life. I'm not a spring chicken anymore either. I've been very fortunate, making it, so to speak, and being involved in so many great things, because this is a passion for me. I mean, I told Terry earlier, my little studio is shut down because I'm building stomp boxes.
Right, you're building guitar pedals now. That's so great.
Just for fun, I have this. I love doing stuff. I have a 1958 Chevy Apache. Bringing that thing back to life was a passion. It was that type of thing. And personally, certainly growing. Certainly being able to help people transitioning is a huge deal. Having Karen in my life is a huge deal. I still have my ex in my life. I still care about her. She's hit some heavy medical things recently. And my kid. I have my daughter. I still have to look out for. 19 is crazy, and so I've got all that going on. But so making it certainly professionally has been cool, and taking little leaps of faith here and there have been not always great, but for the most part great. And personally, certainly transitioning, I mean, if you call that making it, but being just a good person, and making sure I don't burn any bridges I don't want to. I can't say that I haven't, over the years, but not many. And if I did it because I wanted to do it. And but I think that becoming yourself is truly a good thing, and it takes a lot of guts sometimes.
It sure does. It takes a lot of guts and courage. That's a warrior kind of approach to life, is really walking towards what you're afraid of, or just being willing to just put both feet in it.
Yeah. And I take every challenge that comes at me. I don't, whether it's working on my truck or fixing something around the house, to transitioning to helping a friend do something, it's all good, so.
Even having, you've got all your little kitties and doggies around the house, and,
my dog who's sleeping on the couch you shouldn't be right now. But yeah,
Uh-oh.
Karen and I are fostering kittens for the Burbank Animal Shelter, and
Mm-hmm.
that's been a blast too. And we've always been cat and dog people, so it's a good. We're personally catless right now, so and we're fostering these as much as we want to keep them. We've already had so many offers that
Right.
it's been great. Yeah,
That's great. Can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Whew. Good question. 3 tips for my career. Well, do it for nothing if you have to get the experience, especially when you're starting out, and let people know that it's more about that than anything. That's complete the mission. Sometimes you get in so deep, you just want to throw your hands up and say, F this, or, it's overwhelming at times. But, completing the mission is important too, once you get the mission, and what would be number 3? It's such a passion for me. I've always lived it. And I think, despite the times it's ruined my life, and it has a lot, my
Mm-hmm.
personal life. And I will tell you, like anybody in this business, if I told you how many dinners I ruined or
Right.
missed somebody's party because of this or that, but that passion drove me. And I really think it drove me to success.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my thoughts on that, I guess.
I'm remembering a string date that I did for one of my records that I was fortunate to have you as one of the engineers that I was working with, and you were always paying attention and one step ahead. Like you were you cared about the music as much as I cared about it, and I really appreciated that. It wasn't just another string date; it was
No,
our string date that we were doing
yeah.
together.
You nailed it on the head when you said one step ahead, because I think in engineering, like anything, you have to really be looking out like, okay, I see a train wreck coming here. I got to get out there and make sure this doesn't happen, or I've got to cue it from this. I learned to read really well. And my ex was a music teacher and a string player. And
Mm-hmm.
reading charts, I was able to like literally, okay, hey, everybody, we're coming in. Here's 34 for 36. Boom, I'll get you on the 2 and, or
Right.
those type of things, really separated me, especially in tape. I mean, Pro Tools, you can drag it back and you can screw up all you want. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
hurt anything. But when you're punching tape, it's a real, it's a skill that you can't undo. And
Absolutely.
but I think, yeah, like you said, looking ahead or looking, okay, I see the better way. Maybe I'll just suggest going this route, but I'm not going to, not my place to say it, but I say, maybe, why don't you think about maybe like coming in here, or let's
Mm-hmm.
think about maybe treating that way. It's your call, but it's
Well,
so.
I really I've always appreciated your input, regardless of which position, whether you were the first engineer, second, or just passing through, poking in your head in and saying hi, and then having an idea or a
Yeah,
suggestion. It's really
a lot of times I just
generous.
poke my head in to listen and just to see
Right.
friends. If I
Well,
get
why
to see
wouldn't
you or
you?
some old friends, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
That's one of the magical parts of Capital
Yeah.
is just who you get to see walking through the hallway or poking your head into A or B.
Well, Terry,
It's yes.
I'm sorry, Terry and Christina. I don't know if it was your 3 tips, but we had one more guest that had a question for
Oh,
Christina if we have time.
I'm sorry. Sure. I'll hang. My
Thanks.
screen is going crazy, but let's
Okay.
let's take it. Hello,
Make,
guest.
make it quick, John. Hi.
Yeah, I
Thank
will.
you.
No. G'day, Christine. Thank you so much. And Terry, mate, this has been bloody awesome. I'm sitting here in Sydney, Australia, and mate, Christine, you've got a big fan. I didn't realise how much you've achieved, and mate, this is freaking awesome. I've learned so much. But just one quick one: what advice would you give to someone now, someone young coming up, and with all this technology who wants to get into audio engineering?
Well, I've seen a huge revolution in technology in my life. Going from tape to digital tape recorders to full on hard drive recording to, it's the technology's changed so much. I would say, as much as you can, embrace the technology and hang out, see wherever you can hang out and observe and try to keep your mouth shut. A problem for me, but nevertheless, I think, just taking every chance you can, and getting that, because I don't know if you heard the whole thing earlier, but when I came to Los Angeles, there were 300 studios. You know,
Yeah.
if there's even 80 now, probably not even that. But I haven't counted, but anymore. But yeah, it's hard to get in. So take every chance you can. You know, whether it's a live gig, a dialogue gig, you know, just helping out winding cables. I mean, my first job, they liked me because I stayed after and wound cables. You know, so I think that any little thing you can do to get your foot in the door and get seen, and just be comfortable with being seen before anything ever happens, and doing your best to do it is an important goal.
And like you said, Christine, don't be afraid to do a little bit more. If you see something that needs to be done, why not do it?
John, thank you for that question. We
Thank
were
you,
able
John.
to get you in there. Thanks so much.
Christina, I have a closing question for you,
Sure.
and then I'll turn it over to you for any last statement that you'd like to make. At this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, if you could, what would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, good question. Well, the world's revolving and changing so fast. I'm not sure that I could tell my younger self anything. It's just I've been very true and faithful to myself and people in my life, and I would continue to stay on that path. You know, I don't know that I could change anything, or that even I would. You know, I've been very fortunate, you know, as far as people in my life, and that's one thing that I would tell myself. You know, stay fortunate with people. You know, and that's I guess what I would go for right there.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that. The stage is yours. Any closing thoughts, comments?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm honored. And,
sure.
you know, here it is. It's Pride Month, you know, even though there's not a lot of pride happening yet, you know, it's important, you know, that it has a month, you know, and that these things go on. Yeah, West LA has been closed down for a few years. That's sort of the big pride event in California, you know, San Francisco and that. And there hasn't really been it's been a couple of years, you know, now. But just, yeah, thank you for having me. And, you know, it's a special month to do it. I'm not a huge activist like so many people, like Alexander Billings, who I love, you know, or people like that who speak out and are part of it. But I'm out there, you know, and I'm hoping that me being out there and open about it makes that difference. And so I'll leave it at that, I guess.
Well, I really appreciate you making it so easy for me to have this conversation with you and to share your journey and your perspective personally and also professionally with our audience. You know, I was just afraid it might be a little awkward, and it hasn't been. You've made me feel really comfortable in asking questions and
thank you. Is that really... Lisa? Go with the red hair, Lisa. I'm telling you, that's you back there.
So I so much appreciate you joining Lisa and I for this last hour and all of our virtual audience. Thank you, Christina. Everybody, go ahead, Lisa. You have something to say?
Nope. I was just saying I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I am a fan. I will be following you everywhere that I can, and thank you for just sharing your heart and your life experience with us.
Oh no, thank you.
I'm going gray now, Christina. I don't know if I'm going to go back to red, but
well, rock Emmylou Harris.
I'm loving the gray.
Then,
yeah,
you know, yeah, she's got that on. I got a lot of friends that are actually doing that, and they throw a little blue in, you know. But no, I'm the worst self promoter for myself and everything. So I appreciate this. You know, it's been a great opportunity for me, and just to blab for an hour with friends. You know. So.
Yeah, likewise. I feel the same way. I so appreciate you. Everybody, go check out Christina Paakkari and go listen to all of her music, because it's just it's a very broad collection, and your career has just been something to be very proud of, and your life is something to be very proud of. It's really a joy to watch you in this new part of your life. I'm so happy for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, well, everybody out there, thank you so much. And I guess we're signing off. So
we are. And to our audience, so everybody stay safe, stay inspired, and be true to yourself. We really appreciate you. See you next week.
Bye.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Wollman.